James. I was going to talk about this book I finished reading a couple of days ago called The End of the World is Just the Beginning. And I saw my email just now, and Sam Harris is interviewing the author. So what's the point of me commenting on it when I can just share Sam Harris's interview with Peter Zeihan on his podcast? Get it from the horse's mouth. Basically, oil is everything on the shelf. We're headed for food problems. We have logistics problems, materials problems, and there are a few regions, geographical regions in the world with good demographics and good infrastructure and finance that are probably going to be able to do fairly well for a while until they can't anymore, but it's going to be really rough for a lot of places in the world. Of course, America's sitting pretty with all of its resources and its geographical location and its demographics. But of course, the world's a very volatile place, especially now. So you're going to have to find your Curtis Yarvin benevolent king and put him in charge of the United States of new miracles before it breaks apart into several different kingdoms. And since there's no way of producing a benevolent king in our world, you might as well. Who's the actor in Billions who's playing Michael Thomas Aquinas Prince? Sorry, I didn't look that up. But yeah, put that actor, make him the king, because at least he can act like someone who wants to be a benevolent king, even though he's just an oligarch. And Curtis seems to think that people like Tucker Carlson or Elon Musk would be good candidates, which is insane. One entertainer and one entitled goofball, pump and dump con man. So my thinking is a benevolent king would have to have a very good grasp of a lot of complex things before they would be able to take on the task. But maybe the new aristocracy, call them oligarchs, would be able to man the ship, and the king could just be somebody with the focused power that's so needed in the world. Anyway, I don't think any of that's going to happen. People aren't going to stand for it. And what about all the other kingdoms in the world that aren't going to cooperate on important things while the world breaks apart? So the world order that was guaranteed and created by the United States after World War II and secured by the U.S. Navy and military and so on, and also because it was the number one market for developing countries' products and services, is breaking apart, and who knows when that's going to happen, when the dollar's going to go or whatever. But anyway, we're all about oil. We have to be, because everything in our world is based on petrochemicals, and our best energy resource is oil and gas, period. So you can kiss the green world goodbye. That's not going to happen. It costs too much, and it's going to take decades. If you're a Vaclav Smil fan, then you know all about that. There's lots of authors writing about this kind of thing. I picked up the book because Jamie Wheel mentioned it in his newsletter. So yeah, a lot of people thinking about this stuff. And so what? Nothing's going to happen. People just aren't going to make sacrifices for anything. And they're going to get really mad if they have to. So blah, 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 blah. I would recommend listening to that Sam Harris podcast if you can get it. If you're not, I don't know about, if you're not a subscriber or whatever. But I I think Sam Harris will let you listen to a podcast if you're not a subscriber, if you ask him. It should be interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing what the author has to say about his work. He's done a lot of public speaking over the years. He's into demographics and geography. So he's an interesting guy, interesting writer. Yeah, so I don't know what you're going to do to prepare for a world that's very different from the one that we have now and have had. I don't know if the frenemies, I was reading a no opinion piece. Again, I didn't even bring up my notes because I saw this podcast, so I gave up on the idea of talking about it. But, you know, these friendly alliances where you have supply chains and you can defend one another. It seems like we're going to go into a world like that again. So China's in big trouble. Russia's in big trouble. And the West is going to continue to push and press. So we'll see what happens with everything. Anyway, whatever. Come what may. It's just another day. So have a good day. Talk to you soon. William T. Out. Yeah, so it's hot in Portugal and I have the fan on, so there may be some noise. Yeah, I just wanted to look at my notes and follow through because I had an interesting morning thinking about this stuff. And yeah, Michael Thomas Aquinas Prince is a character on Billions. It's an HBO series. And Prince is described as a business titan from a small town in Indiana. Prince is a self-made billionaire, made his first billion by selling his and his friends' company's shares to Microsoft, but refused to sell the rest to give up control. Anyway, he ripped off his friend and later became a billionaire. He's really rich, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but, you know, this guy basically wants to be Caesar. And so it reminds me of Curtis Jarvin's, you know, monarchy thing. Some CEO type, self-made, tough guy that you can, you know, focus your power through. People can just give up the need to feel they need any control over power. Just support the king. There's so many details, so many questions I want to ask Curtis Jarvin, but I probably won't get the chance. Maybe I'll send an email and see if he replies. But anyhow, yeah, trying to pick apart that is difficult because every time he has a talk with somebody like he did on the Jim Rutt show recently, Curtis is really a gish gallop of historical references and kind of trying to paint the picture of what his vision of why we need a monarchy is and why democracy doesn't work and why nothing works basically in the whole wide world. And, you know, the only way out of the stupidity of the crowdsourced, you know, intelligence of crowds and the gridlock of politics that's controlled by oligarchs and all that. Anyway, you can listen to the podcast. Jim Rutt talks to Curtis Yarvin. He goes on and on and on, and then at the end of the podcast, always he says, "Well, maybe I'll come back and we'll talk about, you know, how you get that guy and what the structure of that kind of kingdom looks like," and so on, you know, all the details. So it's just, you know, and Jim doesn't really ask many questions. You know, you just kind of have to listen to it. I listened to Curtis for almost 12 hours, it seems like, when he was in Portugal in person. And yeah, he's really fun to listen to, but there's so many questions, you just can't get a word in edgewise to really explore those things. So I guess I have to go back to reading or beg him to give me pages and URLs to things he's written that might answer my question, because it's difficult. As entertaining as he is to read, it's difficult to go through all of his stuff to try to ferret out answers to some simple and complex questions. Yeah, so anyway, maybe the actor, whose name is Corey Stoll, could be the king of the disunited states of new miracles. And what higher authority Corey Stoll would need to legitimate his place in the universe, his divine rights, I don't know. But anyway, that's another thing. You know, are you a cosmopolitan, or, you know, do you want divine rights? You got to layer that in there. And then, you know, is it a white ethno-state? Is it not? You know, you break up, you let the libtards live where they want to live, and you let the brilliant conservatives, whatever they are, you know, as if any of this was just a monolith. You know, the libtards are one thing, and the alt-right is one thing, or the new right is one thing. You know, it's just not. So how do you pin all that down? I don't know. But you're not going to get away from ideology when you're trying to do it. You know, what does this guy think about science, this king? Is science a good thing, or is it scientism? Is it a religion that goes against the divine rights of kings? I don't know. So many questions, but very hard to answer. Yeah, so then the other thing that I thought was interesting was no opinion, which dovetails into all of this stuff. The end of the world is just the beginning. And, you know, this Fortune article about the CHIPS Act, you know, trying to onshore chip manufacturing and that supply chain, because all the supply chains are global. You know, if you want to build batteries, you need stuff from Japan, factories in Japan, and you need sources of lithium and all that kind of thing. And yeah, so he's talking about, I don't have the URLs pasted in here, but no opinion on Substack also relates. I'll put it in the description and you guys can explore it as you will. So, yeah, are people going to come together to do anything to solve problems? Or are we just going to need some autocrat or dictator or king to decide what needs to be done? And then maybe it works out for 10 years like in Sri Lanka and falls apart, or maybe it works out for 30 years like Queen Elizabeth I or something, and then it falls apart. Of course, no matter what your historical examples are, we're not living in the 15th or 16th or 17th century, much less Caesar's time, Ceasar, Julius. So forget about that stuff. Our world is complex. We need global supplies of everything to live the way we do. And if we're going to bag all of that, then lots of people in lots of places in the world are going to die. So we have to be comfortable with that ethically and morally. And there's going to be more, you know, military competition for supplies of things. France needs Algeria for oil, and Italy will need Libya for oil, and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So whatever it is you're sourcing, can you get meat? Can you get wheat? Can you get rice? Can you get whatever? Do we, you know, and forget about climate change. We're not doing anything about that ever. So we're just going to have to deal with the consequences of a hotter world and see what happens. So good luck.
stand back.